بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So inshallah, where we left off last week, we're going to continue from there. And just want to make sure the volume's okay. All right, inshallah. So where we left off last week, we're going to continue from there. So we were speaking about the introduction. We spoke about iftiraq. We spoke about ikhtilaf. So today we're going to tell you a bit more about history and a bit more about introduction as well. And also we'll bring in some new hadith as well for you to understand, the background about these sects, inshallah. So now what we're going to speak about today, that we need to know, and it's so important that the companions and the prophets and the scholars, we need to understand. I mean, it's so important that they were the ones who spoke about the division in the ummah, and they spoke about how important it is to stay in a group together. And also we need to know that once we deviate from a group, that's where the differences start happening. And also, we spoke about so many things, some of the ayahs that we spoke about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُمْ إِلَى اللَّهِ ثُمَّ يُنَبِّهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. That indeed those who have differed their religion, they and become sects different from the way of the Prophet Muhammad, they're not associated, they're not part of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The affair is left only to Allah, and He will inform them on the Day of Judgment. And there are numerous ayahs which speak about this, and even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, one of the hadith is, "Wa inna hada sirati mustaqima fattabi'u," and this is my path, that's a straight path, so follow me. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلُ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ, and do not follow the other paths, for you have actually separated from my path. ذَلِكَ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. This has been instructed to you, and so that you may become righteous. So we should not be differing, splitting into groups and doing all sorts of things. And also, there's an amazing ayah in Surah Nisa when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually speaks about فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. That when you disagree over something, then refer back to the Prophet and the Messenger and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. If you should believe in Allah and the last day. ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَعْوِيلًا. And this is the best way, and it's the best result that you achieve from it. And there's many ayahs that we can speak about. So today what we're going to do, so inshallah, those people who are deviant, how do we define deviant? So we're going to look at that as well. Is there a number of sects? So we're going to look at how many numbers, or can we call them numbers or not? Are they Muslim or kuffar? We're going to also see that. Also, after we've covered all that, inshallah, in the later stages of this talk, and inshallah these halaqat, we're going to go into the juicy part of the history. We're going to speak about how they deviated. We're going to speak about their beliefs as well. So from the Prophet to the 7th century, and also from there till the 14th century, and talking about all these sects, how they started. Now, before we go into there, one of the things that I actually want to talk about, there was a question today about the difference of opinion. And there was another question. I'm going to speak about that question towards the end, inshallah. There's a question which came to me earlier. It was about the difference of opinion. So Ibn Qudama said this statement. He says, فَإِجْمَاعُ حُجَّةٌ قَاطِعَةٌ وَإِخْتِلَافُ رَحْمَةٌ وَاسِعَةٌ. And he said the ijma' can be difficult, on the qati', to follow. وَاخْتِلَافُ رَحْمَةٌ وَاسِعَةٌ, and the ikhtilaf could be a mercy. So basically, what it means is when it comes to the matters of ahkam and the fiqh and all these things, sometimes if you only got one opinion, that could become very difficult. But on the other hand, if you've got if you've got few opinions, and according to the situation, when the ulama look at that, they will choose the best which is for the ummah. Now, it doesn't mean that you go for grocery shopping and you don't like the full cream milk, so you're going to go for the light milk, and you don't like this milk, so you're going to go to the other milk. So it doesn't really mean that. What it really means is the faqih who has knowledge of the religion, of hadith, of Quran, he's going to make his rulings. He's going to look at what's the most strongest opinion close to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also which is easy for the people to follow. And so one of the other wisdoms behind it also is that people can differ in the matters of the fiqh opinions. People can have difference of opinion, but when it comes to aqeedah, when people differ, that actually leads them outside the fold of Islam. We cannot differ on aqeedah that Allah is only one. There cannot be any difference of opinion on that. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger. There's no difference of opinion like the Christians say that Isa alayhi salam is his son. So that's completely out of the realm of Islam, will take you out of the fold of religion. But when it comes to the fiqh ruling, should I raise my hands when I'm going to ruku, or should I just leave it like that? These are the matters where, if there's a difference there, and yes, you still yet stay Muslim and you have a difference of opinion, and that's why there's a mercy in there. But again, this mercy is only for the scholars, not for a layman to start picking up. Now, also, it makes things easy. So, for example, the scholar looks at the advice of the people, their situation, and he looks at what is the best suited advice to them. So he's going to base that on that opinion. And the other thing I want to also mention is what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala said. He said, ماذا بعد الحق إلا الضلال. He said, after truth is falsehood, and there's nothing in between them. So basically what that means, in the West we live, we have, this opinion's right, that opinion's right, both opinions are right. This is actually a wrong understanding. Understand, when you have two opinions, it doesn't mean they both are right. It means that there's a mercy of Allah, there's a leniency there, but it doesn't mean one is definitely right and the other one's wrong. What it allows us, it's telling us, yes, there's a contradiction in there, but it doesn't mean that if we follow the other opinion when it comes to the fiqh, we'll go outside Islam. It's the mercy of Allah. But also understand, when it comes to the opinions, when it comes to this, there is only one opinion, and one opinion is only right. This mentality that everything is right and both are right is the wrong mentality. Now, when you now going into after the opinions, we want to talk about and also, when the scholar, the smart scholar on this side, when he's giving opinion, he's going to look at all the people, and he's going to make an opinion that suits the people. That's why when we go out fatwa shopping on these websites like Islam Q&A and the likes of it, yes, they're great scholars, but then they are not living in the West, so they don't understand where we are coming from and what our situation is. So if we're taking that and not asking the scholars of the land, it only makes it difficult for us to follow those opinions. And also, now there's another thing. When it comes to Ahlul Iftiraq, there is another group. Why do they go into this firq? Why do they go into the firqas, the sects? One of the biggest thing is they're also called in the history Ahlul Ahwa or Hawa. And Hawa means to fall down. So basically, the scholars say, because when you start following your desires, you're only falling down. You're just not going to be able to come up and be part of the ummah or the bigger group. Now, people introducing the introductions of issues are based on people's desires. So they don't want to follow the truth, and they want to go away from that. And that's when they start judging, and that's where they start bringing innovations in the religion. So this is something that's very, very important over here. So Now, now what's the definition of a sect? How can we define a sect? And this is mentioned in the books of the scholars mentioned. This is what a sect is. It said المجتمعون على أصل بدعي مفارقون به جمعة المسلمين علما أو عملا. That when a group separates from the reality and falls into the bid'ah, to the innovations, and they go away from the principles and the fundamentals, and they fall into something which is invented, and they break away from the jama'ah, from the group, from the main group of the Muslims in knowledge and actions. This is what a sect is. Now, those who gather around the principles and the fundamental issues, and they go around something which is invented and gather around that, uh, holding on to new principles against Islamic principle. Now, that is what a sect is. And this is what we need to understand, inshallah. This is something that you can write down, inshallah. Now, for example, in the time of Ali radiallahu anhu, the Khawarij, they separated from the fundamental, from the basics of the religion. Like in the time of Ali, they, some of you probably don't know this. This is what one of the biggest problems in Khawarij was. If you do a major sin, then you're not a Muslim. Then if you do not ask for istighfar before you die, you're going to be rotting in hellfire for eternity. So basically what they're trying to say, if you are a Muslim and you did a major sin, you committed a major sin, and you died upon that major sin, so you're going to be in hellfire for eternity. And this is a wrong belief. If you're a Muslim, you did not get a chance to make istighfar, you died in a major sin, with the mercy of Allah, He may forgive you. And if Allah wanted to judge you, you will be in hellfire. But because you're a Muslim, you'll be allowed to come back to Jannah. That's it. That's the mainstream belief. And that's why when they separated from Ali radiallahu anh, and he said, you did a major sin, you're not a Muslim anymore. And they separated in the city of Harura. And they went there and they left the Muslims. And that was a practical way, a practical example, leaving and separating from the Jama'ah. And you know, the modern day, if you really want to see that, the modern day, the practical example is the groups that we have today. And one of the groups, and with all due respect to them, the Shi'as, where have they separated themselves from the wider Sunni community. They've got their own masajids, they've got their own set of days that they come from. The example, the Ghadir Khum and those, and the days when they beat themselves up, which is very, very close in the month of Muharram, which is a day of mourning for them. And this is something that they have invented. It's an invention, and it also separated from the mainstream group as well. So they've left the fundamental, they've left the ummah. So, and to hold on to the principles of Quran and Sunnah every day, and to hold on to the truth, even if you are a minority, is Jama'ah. It's actually the group. It's actually the actual group. Ibn Masud said, even if you are one and you're holding up on the principles of Quran and Sunnah, even though no one in the town, the entire city that you live, they're on falsehood, you are the one who's actually on Sunnah. You're the one who's majority. Because why? Majority is haqq. It's the truth. Now, majority is following the Quran and Sunnah. Majority is on the right path. So who is a majority? For example, one of the examples that comes to mind is Muhammad ibn Aslam al-Tusi. In his town, he was considered to be the Jama'ah back in the days. He's the only scholar who was on the truth. The whole town was following innovation. He's the only one who was following Quran and Sunnah, and he was called majority by the latter scholars. They called him the majority. So somebody who invents bid'ah but didn't separate. So this is what group is. But now there is a second question which we started. Okay, what about the people that have invented something, but they're still part of the main group? So, for example, some of you probably will be surprised what I'm about to say. So, this idea of madahib did not even exist for the first 300 years of Islam. First 300 years of Islam, no one had this ideology of following a particular way, of following a particular group. For example, the Hanafis and Shafis and the Malikis and the Hanbali. It never happened. It is not the way of Sahaba. It was not in the time of the Tabi'een. No one did it. None of them said, okay, we're going to choose these four Imams out of the entire scholars and what we have, and we're going to follow them. And this was something which was not even existent in the time when we go back to the time of the Prophet and the Sahabas and the Tabi'een. They did not say that we're only going to follow one Imam, his only ways, and that's the only guide. So if I'm a Shafi, I'm going to follow his theology, I'm going to follow his way, even if they're contradicting Quran and Sunnah. And this was something which was never existent, never existed. Even all the Imams, if you look at the books, start reading the books of these Imams, they say, if you find any way which is other than the way of the Prophet, then leave that and follow the Prophet. And that's something very, a statement about these Imams. And this was the bid'ah that existed. You know, even from the Tabi'een, the people that followed Ibn Mas'ud, they were not called Mas'udis. People that followed Abdullah ibn Umar, they were not called Umaris. People that followed Ibn Abbas, they were not called Abbasis. So those people invented, but again, they never. The issue over here is they did not separate from the Jama'ah. Like they did not. They were. This is called muta'assibatul madahib. That this is the extremism of following a madhab, a group. So the Hanafis and the Shafis and the Hanbalis, and when they are only following their Imams and discounting the other ways which were more closer to the Sunnah and the Quran. So this is called muta'assib. So these are, and also could be classed in a way as nepotism as well, because you are giving precedence to your family. I mean, kind of like you could call it a family tree and your way, because you're from the Hanafi family, so you give more precedence to them over the other Imams and their rulings. So extremism of mazahib is not a sect. Okay, this is what you need to understand. There's a very clear point I'm making over here. So if you are extremist on a particular group, that's not a sect. But what they did is completely wrong. New way of giving da'wah, again, is not falling away from the group. It's not a sect. Like, for example, the Tablighi Jama'ah of today, they say you're going to have 40 days, you've got 4 months, you have 10 days, you've got 3 days. That's all new ways. I mean, there was nothing like that. You don't have to go to the masjid and live over there and leave your families or on their own tools and not worry about them. Okay, I'm going to the house of Allah. Allah is going to look after this part. This kind of tawakkul is flawed. And religion does not allow this kind of tawakkul. You have to look after your family. You have to, at the same time, also learn Islam, and that's your responsibility. Now, the separation of groups and sects. Okay, this is something where Imam Ahmed defines. He gives a definition. He says, "Al-firqatu hiya al-mufarriq bihi al-insan دين المسلمين وجماعة, that a firqa is the one who separates within the people of this religion, the Muslims, and the group. That's what a firqa is. They have their own thing, they have their own little world, and they've completely separated. That's what a firqa is. Now, do we have a specific number? Or are they limited? Are they unlimited? Do we have names? What is the ruling? Are they all Muslims? And this is a very good question. Now, before I go there, one point just came to my mind. Also, there was some extremism that was found in these madhabs, these schools of thought. One of them was the Hanafis were not allowed to marry the daughters of the Shafis, and likewise they were not allowed to pray behind them, because the Shafis would said inshallah, we're from the mu'mineen. So the Hanafis would say that because they're saying inshallah, so that means they're not really, uh, you know, they don't think so, they're Muslims, so we're not going to follow them. So they said they've got doubt in their belief, and if you've got doubt, you're like a Christian or you're like a Jew, and you can't be a Muslim. So this is extremism of madahib. And again, this has got nothing to do with separation. But again, the Shafis and the Malikis, the Hanbalis, we all go for Hajj and Umrah, and we pray behind the Imams. We do not separate the masjid based on that. You may have a Hanafi masjid in your area and you pray over there. Likewise, I mean, this is the thing. Now, the point I was trying to make is the hadith. Now, this is what I want to mention. Now, the specific number and all these things. Now, there is a specific number that the Prophet actually told us. And there's a famous hadith, and this hadith is mentioned by many Sahabis. Muawiyah radiallahu an, Anas radiallahu an, Abu Hurairah radiallahu an, and the likes of it. Now, this hadith, I want you to remember this hadith, memorize it. It's mentioned in Tirmidhi, it's mentioned in Al-Hakim al-Mustadrak, it's mentioned in Abi Dawud, it's mentioned in An-Nisa'i, with some slight different variation in the language, but the meaning stays the same. And it's a Sahih hadith. And also, I'm going to speak about why there's a difference of opinion when it comes to this hadith. Now, the hadith is the one that I'm about to mention is mentioned by Auf bin Malik. And Auf bin Malik قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم افترقت اليهود على 71 فرقة فواحدة في الجنة و70 في النار واقترقت النصارى على 72 فرقة ف71 في النار وواحدة في الجنة والذي نفس محمد بيده لتفترقن أمتي على 73 فرقة فواحدة في الجنة و72 في النار قيل يا رسول الله من هم؟ قال الجماعة وكما قال وكنت عليه أنا وأصحابي. And so basically what the meaning is of this hadith is a very profound hadith. So he's telling us, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that, and it's this hadith, as I said, is mentioned by Auf bin Malik, and the hadith goes to the words that the Yahud will divide in 71 sects. One will be in Jannah and 70 sects, 70 في النار, will be in hellfire. وَإِفْتَرَقَتِ النَّصَارَى, that they will divide the Christians in 72, that they will divide into 72 sects. وَسَبْعُونَ فَإِحْدَى that 71 will be in hellfire and one will be in Jannah. لَتَفْتَرِقَنَّ أُمَّتِي, that my nation will divide على 73 in 73 sects. فواحد في الجنة و72 في النار, that 72 will be in hellfire. قيل يا رسول الله من هم? Then who are these? He said جماعة, and then he said وما كنت عليه أنا, and the ones who are upon my path and the Jama'ah is basically the one who are upon my path and the path of my companions. This is what he said. Now, this hadith has many positions. This is where the thing gets very, very complicated. This hadith has many positions. Now, the different position, the first position is it's fabricated. This hadith does not exist. There's people are in our community, even as we speak, big scholars that they've said this hadith not in Bukhari, this not in Muslim. And one of the biggest scholars, Ibn Hazm, rahimahullah ta'ala, may Allah have mercy on him, was one who said that this hadith is fabricated. This is one of the biggest mistakes that he made, and it's not part of the Sunnah. Only scholars who came late, for example, Abi Shayba, and this hadith is actually mentioned by great scholars. You know why? Because he said only the late scholars mentioned this hadith, like Abi Shayba, Ad-Darimi, Ibn Asim, Ahmed, Abi Dawood, Al-Hakim, and so many other scholars. I mean, so not because it is weak, it contradicts itself. This is another opinion. They said, okay, it's not weak, but it's a contradiction to itself, because he said, my ummah separated in 73 sects. So how can it be that his ummah is going to hellfire? That was one of the opinions as well. How can it be that the Prophet's ummah is going to the hellfire? And there's no contradiction at all when you look at this statement. It does not mean that they are kuffar. Or, for example, there are so many numerous hadith that you've heard. If you eat the money of the orphans, you go to hellfire. If you steal the money, you go to hellfire. If you commit adultery, you go to hellfire. So there's so many hadith. So there's no contradiction whatsoever. When people say, yeah, if we are Muslims, if we did major sins, yes, we can go to hellfire. That's what we spoke about. It doesn't mean that we're going to be there forever. So many hadith. It doesn't mean that they are kuffar. And this is the thing, there are so many hadith about if you did this evil, if you do that evil. It doesn't mean that these people are kafir. Now, my ummah, the Prophet's nation, are of two types. Okay, this is what you need to understand. If you want to reconcile and these kind of hadith and many other hadith, you need to understand there are two opinions. So one is that who accepted Islam, and the other one, the one he was sent to. So if you look at وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, that I have been sent to people as a mercy to mankind. So everyone, Prophet has been sent to everyone. So if you take that opinion that my ummah, 72 of my ummah, the words of the hadith which we just spoke about, that he said, ummati la taftariqanna ummati ala 73 firqa. That my ummah, if we take that opinion, only that one, even then, you can reconcile it very easily. So one is that his ummah is everyone that he was sent to. Everyone, even the Christians and Jews and everyone, because now there'll be no prophet after him. And so if you really take this terminology, you can reconcile many of the hadith which is like that. Even there's no contradiction whatsoever if you look at that. I mean, we only have to be open-minded. And hadith is not just related to just the Muslims. It's for everyone who came after these people. Now, people not Muslims are also part of his ummah because he's a prophet, as I said, and there's no contradiction. So, what is the meaning of of this hadith? So it's also and there was another group where this was really a flawed idea, but I'm going to mention this group as well. They said, okay, how can a prophet know about the future and about this group? And this is a very really flawed excuse. This is Ahlul Ahwa, which we said the people who fall down on their faces. How? Because he's a prophet. Part of a prophecy is going to tell you about future. So he's telling you about future. So people who say, how can you know about future? That's completely a flawed argument. Now, there's a second position. They accepted it, but they had difference of opinion and understanding it. The first said the 73 sect, it does not mean exactly the 73 sect. Why? Because it said it means that there are more than that. Because in Arabic language, the language, sometimes you say, for example, I'll give you an example from the hadith. He says, like, the al-haddu sahir darabat al-sayf, that the punishment of a magician is that you hit him by the sword. Okay, it does not mean that you hit him by the sword, you hit him one time. This is what the hadith is saying, hit him by the sword one time. It doesn't mean you hit him by the sword and he doesn't die. It doesn't mean that. It means that you hit him till he dies. That's what the hadith is, to be hanged till death. So sometimes you need to hit him more than one time, you're going to do that. So that's what they said. So basically they're saying that. And also when you look at the hadith arba'in, it doesn't mean it's 40, it's more than 40. So that's a terminology. And it's more like ahlul kalam. This is, basically extrapolating the meanings, the hidden meanings. And so I am actually going to speak about that as well. And so it means many. So that's what they were trying to say. It means a large quantity. So now, having said that, no doubt, so basically what they're saying, it's a large quantity, and they'll keep on coming. So no doubt there'll be more than that. That's just a number. Now the second position is no. 73 means 73. So you cannot say a number it does not mean, especially when it's specifying. Why? Because if you look at the other numbers in the hadith, it's actually specifying. So Jews 71, Christians 72. So it's actually specifying. So they said, and this is the opinion of Al-Mawti al-Baghdadi, they said, yes, it's specifying, so there should be 73. Now, as a third opinion, which I believe is the more closer to the Sunnah, and they said it means a number, but he didn't meant to specify them by names. So basically, it is a number. Yes, there is a number, and again, we cannot, make assumptions or extract from these numbers that the many. But yeah, it is a number, but he kept it open. So meaning, he did not allow us to judge. Okay, this is one, this is two, this is three. The Ahl al-Sunnah Jama'ah way is, and again, it's against the Arabic language as well. And why? Because it's ta'wil, it's false interpretation. So you're making ta'wil, which is not mentioned by the Prophet. So you're just saying, okay, you know what, ta'wil, I'm going to do this, okay, this is a hidden meaning, it's the interpretation of this. So that's why it's against that. So the opinion which is more stronger, yes, it is that number, but we don't know the specific number of groups that are going to come in. And also, and we need, also we need respect. For example, we need evidences in order to say, okay, this is this group and this is that group. Just to keep it very simple in your life, very simple. Yes, this is the right number, but we don't know. It hasn't been specified. So we have to deal with this hadith like a targhib. And targhib is like, we have to take, it's like a warning. And when you look at the hadith, the Prophet is telling us the signs of the sects. So it's telling us, okay, he told us that they will be differing from the Jama'ah. So he did not talk about the 72 sects. He only spoke about one. And what's that one? It's going to be in my way, in the way of my companions. So he generalized the statement. Anyone who goes away from those people, he's actually gone away from that way. So this is what it is. And also Imam Ahmed said this, and he was actually trying to tell us in general the meaning of this hadith. He was trying to tell us. He said, "As-sifatul firqatul najiyah wa abham ghayraha," that the quality of the one who's a saved sect, wa abham ghayraha li ta'mimi, the al-hal, that they are different from what is the way which is being followed. حتى يقع موقت الزجرة التام لكل مخالف المجلس, that they are doing something, and they're doing something very different. حتى يقع موقع الزجرة التام لكل مخالف المجلس, like they are completely different from the main group. So basically, there are many sects that appeared. I'll give you one example very quickly. The Nation of Islam. So the Nation of Islam is something which is a very new sect, and it's completely away, mukhalif. It's completely different from the beliefs of Islam. And Prophet also said Dajjal will come with a group of Khawarij. So he's also specifying the groups as well by names. It's saying all the Khawarij will be actually part of the Dajjal's group, and they will remain until the. So it means that yes, these groups are there. They will actually be remaining there, and they will be coming in the time of the Dajjal, and they actually we will be part of that. They will be participating with them. So every time a new one comes, what about a new one? You keep it. So that's why we keep it open. So when it says 72 sects are deviant, so it's kept open. So it doesn't mean, okay, we've counted the number 72, okay, that's over. No, no. There'll be so many people coming. Or for example, at the moment that we live in, we've got Malm. Okay, Malm is Mufti Abu Layth al-Maliki. And this guy is deviant to the teeth. And he comes back from our own country. And, he is, it doesn't mean that, okay, we've finished the number count and we can't add him in. So this is the problem now. I believe this is a more stronger opinion, and it doesn't mean, again, it doesn't mean hell forever for these groups. This is what I also believe. They will be punished for their actions, and Allah will judge them. And this is what we believe as rules related to the Muslims. And if Allah shows mercy to them, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah wants to punish them again, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, again, some are Muslims, some stay Muslims again. They will be punished and coming back. But some become kafir, like Alawis. Alawis, Iyadhu Billah, said Allah's spirit actually entered Ali radiallahu anh. Iyadhu Billah also said Allah and Ali are the same. And those people said, some people they said Quran has been changed. They say tahrif in the Quran. One of the issues at the moment is, with all due respect to Sheikh Yasir Qadi, he also has put doubts in people's mind about the collection of Quran. And Allah does not know anything what's going to happen. We will make our own judgment. That was that group as well. And also people that denied the Mu'tazila, it's not the word of Allah. In the Quran is not the word of Allah. It's not Kalam Allah. So no doubt they'll keep on coming. There's another second position as well. So then no doubt that we keep on coming. So if we take this principle, they've changed those principles of Quran and ahkamat of the religion, then they are kuffar. For example, you've got the Jahmiyyah, the Batiniyah, and Ad-Duruz, which are actually in Lebanon, South Lebanon, and they say you don't have to really worry about anything until you turn 40. So what does that mean? If you turn 40, that's when you have to start practicing and all the rulings apply to you. So you can have fun, you can live your life, you can just have fun as much as you like, and that's how it's amazingly you can do it. So this is something which is wrong again. And they open the door. So basically it's a very, very attractive religion, even attractive to Christianity as well, that Jesus died for your sin. No one's died for anyone's sin over here. You can enjoy your life till 40. After that, you can just go back and just live a very, very, a life where you celibate life, where you just spend the rest of the life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is just opening the door for evil. And there are many sects like that. Now, this is also called following, and again, this is like Ahlul Ahwa. The people are just following their desires. Now, some of these groups are Mubtadi'ah. And Mubtadi'ah are the ones who are making innovations, and they go outside they are innovators. Kullu bid'atin dalala wa kullu dalalatin fi an-nar. They all the innovations are wrong, and all wrong is in the hellfire. So they become, some statements have kufr. We cannot collectively call them kafir, but they've got some statements of kufr in them. For example, we can't collectively say for the whole group. We judge them individually, like Asha'ira and Maturidiyah. Like they say, Iyadhu Billah, that Allah is everywhere, Allah is under your feet, Allah is in the toilet, Allah is everywhere. Because the Quranic ayah is very simple. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-arsh istawa. We do not do ta'wil, we do not do any interpretation. We say Allah is above the seven heavens, above the throne. Okay, that's the belief, that is a mainstream belief. And also, if people are confused, this is what Muawiyah, when Muawiyah asked the slave girl, where's Allah? She pointed in the heaven and she said, that's where it is. Now, today we've got this belief, which is very common. Allah is everywhere. Allah watches us. Yes, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ سَمِيعٌ بَصِيرٌ. There's nothing like him, and Allah watches and hears everything. His knowledge is everywhere. And so for certain issues, they don't believe that Allah is above the heaven. Okay, that's not their particular belief. Again, we can't judge them, the entire people. Yes, they're confused, they don't know. So yes, we have to individually look at these cases. And what are their names? Now, there are some books as well. For example, which has been done by people. For example, there is Abu Hassan al-Ash'ari. He actually wrote a book, Al-Mukalat al-Islamiyya, the principle of he wrote this book on sects. So in that, he actually put all these sects based on their principles that deviated. If someone deviated on qadr, predestiny, so all the groups he actually wrote under there. If you differentiated on faith, so he put all these people or groups under that faith. So he categorized according to the principles that the beliefs that they deviated, and he mentioned them historically. This is a very, very famous book which is out there. Now, also, there is another opinion which is Abdullah ibn Mubarak. He said that he mentioned the sects as well. They all come from these four sects. This is what he said. And this is, what are these four sects? He said these are the basis of all the sects. The first one is Ash-Shi'a, Al-Khawarij, the second one, the third one, Al-Qadariyya, and the fourth one, Al-Murji'ah. And he said these are the four sects, and they're the major umbrella, and everything comes under these umbrellas. Every other sect is part of is either brother, sister, son, or whatever you want to call it. It comes under that. Now, finally, I want to finish off, and all comes under them. Now, inshallah, we're going to go more into the history in the next lesson, which is next Sunday, inshallah. I hope you're enjoying it. Maybe you can write some comments and some questions you have now. You can start typing them. I'm more than happy to answer them. Then finally, I want to say one thing, and this is the sorry fact. Did you know that all Sunni scholars, the mainstream Ahl al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they never wrote any book on the sects or the groups? Never. The ones who actually wrote the books on sects were Ibn Hazm, al-Baghdadi, al-Sharastani. Remember, I told you about al-Milal wal-Nihal, the book was Sharastani. All these books actually were written by Ahl al-Kalam. Now, Ahl al-Kalam is the knowledge of theological rhetoric. And this is like going back to the Greek philosophy, and this is the innovation in religion that created this is where the intellectual schism in the Muslim nation was created. And it was a deviant trend that one of the sect that indulged in this was Mu'tazila. They gave precedence to intellect over the text and Quran and Sunnah. So they were Ahl al-Kalam, they were going beyond. And one of the Ahl al-Kalam of today is Nouman Ali Khan. And why? Because he dissects the ayahs of Quran, and he comes with his own opinions with these words and this Arabic language. And so this is what they used to do. Their attitude set an evil precedent for all later groups who sought to make intellect and desire decisive over Quran and Sunnah. That's one of the worst things where ilm al-kalam happened, okay? Or the hidden meaning of this word and this means that, and not taking what the Sahabas have said, not taking what the Quran really means or how it was defined. So this was, and unfortunately, no Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah scholar actually wrote any book on the sect. It was always these Ahlul Kalam people that actually wrote. Now, I had a question, very simply, I'm actually going to answer that question, which was asked by one of the brothers. He said in the hadith where he gave the milk to the parents and not the children when they were crying, and it's his responsibility to look after the children. Understand, that person gave precedence to the parents. Yeah, by all means. I mean, when the children are there and they are, they need the parents to nurture them and to look after them, but he gave precedence to the parents. Why? Because understand, Allah actually speaks about the child, his responsibility, وَبِرِ الْوَالِدَيْنِ, and ihsana, and to show ihsan towards the parents, which we have forgotten today. We do take this matter very lightly when it comes to giving precedence to the parents' need, and not and looking after our immediate families. We live in these countries with our immediate families, which are the wife and the children, and sometimes the parents are far away, and they are overseas, and we're not able to look after them and their needs, and we forget them at times. So basically, what the hadith is saying, there's nothing to, it doesn't mean that we can't give precedence to our children when they need it. It doesn't mean that. It means that, our parents have more rights, more than the children, and their status in Islam is greater. And Islam stands out. It says to be kind, tolerant, and respectful towards the treatment of the parents. Worship God and join none uh, with Him, and do good to parents. Wa'budullahu, that will worship Allah and be good. And therefore, it's the duty to love and cherish their parents. This is something that's forgotten. In that hadith, he was just telling, oh Allah, I ask you that I'm always so dutiful to my parents that I was even ignored my children and my wife, who I have responsibility towards. I ignored them for my responsibility towards my parents. It's not telling you that you ignore your children's cry or anything. It is not saying that. Islam does not say that we have to look after everyone's responsibility. Everyone, we're responsible. But it was saying that I gave precedence to my parents over my children. That's what it was trying to say. So yeah, we live over here. It doesn't mean, oh, mom, have you eaten? Because I'm about to feed my children. If you haven't eaten, I'm not going to be giving anything to my children today. No, it really doesn't mean that. And it just shows that he was showing that how dutiful he was. No son can repay the mother. Remember that the man who put the mother on the back and did 7 rounds, and he said, oh, I've repaid you today how you lifted me. And basically he said, you cannot never pay your mother, even if you were to carry her for your entire life. So inshallah, if there's any more questions, I'm happy to take it. If not, I'll call it off over here, inshallah. All right, وجزاكم الله خيرا. أقول قولي هذا، استغفر الله لي ولكم، فاستغفر الله إنه الغفور الرحيم.